welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Truly appreciate all your support. Hope you all had a fantastic holiday weekend, uncensored and unafraid. Quick favor, y'all know the drill. Please, if you're enjoying the content, take a second, smash the like button, make sure you're subscribed, comment down below, questions, insults, whatever makes you happy today. Remember when, not that long ago, y'all had your voices heard when Caitlin Clark was not getting credited for assists that Caitlin Clark should have gotten, and it actually prevented her from setting a record. And it was so loud, y'all were so loud, that the WNBA actually fixed it and fixed it quickly. So does this look familiar? The other day we talked about Tiffany Hayes and her nonsense and her behavior going on threads and endorsing certain physical behavior against Caitlin Clark. And guess what? The media didn't want to touch it, other than to maybe spin it and attack creators and attack Caitlin Clark fans and dismiss it as nonsense. But it has to be addressed more and more, because guess what all of you did? What's happening? WNBA trending. Tiffany Hayes, as I said here, should have been the WNBA media, but we all know it was Caitlin Clark fans that got this going. So who knows? Will something happen? I don't know. But for those of you who don't know, just real quick, or don't remember, didn't see that video, there was a whole bunch of other stuff that led into this, that Tiffany Hayes was, going back and forth with for fans. It says, listen, I got some cousins we don't speak about that will ride at dawn upon request. Don't just let me know. And Tiff Hayes is, the laughing, crying emoji, and says that's real. And of course, people are trying to dismiss this, but everybody knows what we ride at dawn means. It doesn't mean we're going for a latte, okay? Everybody knows what it means. Anyone who's saying it does not mean physical stuff, they're lying. They're simply lying to you, because they know how bad this looks. They can't defend it, so they're going to move the goalposts about it. And we've got Sports Illustrated weighing in once again with another great take. This is about a minute long, and they've decided, hey, you know what? It's a good thing that Tiffany Hayes is inciting violence against Caitlin Clark. Now, we all know Caitlin Clark has already had at least one stalker that we know of do prison time, right? If I'm not mistaken, did I just lose my mind? But I'm pretty sure actually went to prison, which isn't easy, by the way, right? With the laws in place, because it's hard to, it's kind of get like Minority Report to Tom Cruise. You can't be putting people in jail for something they haven't actually done yet, which is what's always made it really tricky. As much as we might get pissed because sometimes it seems so obvious that something bad can happen. But anyway, something bad very easily could happen. And we're going to get back to that, because it wouldn't be the first time. Keep that in mind while you're listening to this.
Tiffany Hayes engaging with fans on social media about her recent Caitlin Clark back and forth is exactly why the WNBA feels different than every other sport, and that's actually a good thing. Yesterday, Tiff Hayes was talking with fans about her interaction with Caitlin Clark during the Fever and Valkyries recent game. While some fans are upset about what she said, I think it's her speaking in the first place that's more interesting, and that's because this kind of thing is more normal in the WNBA than a lot of people realize, especially when...
Okay, I got to stop there. I'm sorry, but did you catch that? I'm going to play that again. I just gave you the interaction and what Tiffany Hayes was responding to. Okay? Listen to how he dismisses it as nothing.
Tiffany Hayes engaging with fans on social media about her recent Caitlin Clark back and forth is exactly why the WNBA feels different than every other sport, and that's actually a good thing. Yesterday, Tiff Hayes was talking with fans about her interaction with Caitlin Clark during the Fever and Valkyries recent game. While some fans are upset about what she said, I think it's her speaking in the first place that's more interesting, and that's...
Some fans are upset about what she said, but he's conveniently not telling you what was said. There's a reason fans were upset, but we don't want to get into that, because, again, WNBA media does not actually do their job. They aren't journalists. They're stenographers and propagandists trying to prop up the WNBA. They ignore important stories. They spin important stories. They lie to you, whether it's just straight out or omission or burying stories. A lot of the things they talk about now, they talk about by going after the content creators who are talking about the stories and making those stories big that they never wanted to cover in the first place.
That's because this kind of thing is more normal in the WNBA than a lot of people realize, especially when compared to most other sports. Also,
That's not true. That's not to think players in other sports don't engage on social media is absurd.
this morning, the Ringer's C. Red Sohi posted a great article about a portion of Caitlin Clark's fans who believe everything is a controversy, and the most
I'm sorry, I know I keep stopping, but again, did a video on that the other day. Added multiple content creators. The fact that he's endorsing that article, but not getting into specifics, of course, because regular media in covering the WNBA never brings receipts. They don't have receipts because they have to spin and they have to lie in order to make their points.
common pushback the article has received is that she and the rest of WNBA media read too much about what's on social media, and sometimes think that criticism is fair. But I also think WNBA fans often forget the amount of access we have to players through social media is unparalleled compared to other sports. Especially on X and Threads, pretty much every day, some players are commenting or interacting with fans about the narratives or discourses going on in the league. They're actively participating in this ecosystem. So when players themselves are engaging with online narratives, of course the media that's meant to cover them is going to be doing the same. Because at the end of the day, my job is identifying what people are paying attention to in the sport. And social media, while imperfect, is a useful tool for that. It doesn't mean all online discourse matters or represents every WNBA fan. But in this league specifically, social media and the actual league's ecosystem are very interconnected. And honestly, I think that access and interconnectivity is what makes the WNBA feel uniquely personal and approachable compared to other leagues, which is something that should be celebrated. Tiffany
None of that's true. If you pay attention to any other leagues, to think players are not interacting on social media is absurd. That's just simply untrue. Now, again, I want to circle back to a couple of things he said, but also point this out as Annika. Shout out to Annika who supports the channel. They always throw the first punch, but run away crying when they get punched back. Why do they do that? So this is Roberta, supposedly again another media Brazilian American women's basketball reporter, founder at Berta Basket, whatever that is, apparently writes at Forbes. That might be the most embarrassing thing I've that right there tells me Forbes ought to be shut down, but that's a story for another day. Get this. For some reason, it feels like they are trying to do to Tiffany Hayes what they did to Kennedy Carter in 2024. What did they do to Kennedy Carter? Caitlin Clark fans were upset about the cheap shot in game one and felt Kennedy Carter should have been suspended, which is 100% true. They were upset about the lie from Kennedy Carter and Angel Reese and other Sky players when they got out off the bus at the Mystics game with about the person harassing them, the Caitlin Clark fan, because none of that was true. It wasn't Caitlin Clark fans who got Kennedy Carter banned from the WNBA for an entire season. In fact, most of us, at least the ones of us, putting content out there, said no, it absolutely should not have happened. So I don't know what she's talking about. And of course, there are also two very, very different things: inciting violence against the player. I don't know how that relates to Kennedy Carter at all, at all. Now, this was very frustrating to see a lot of this stuff. But what gave me a little bit of hope is total pushback in the comments, getting absolutely wrecked in the comments. F you talking about other leagues don't engage online. F off slow. They do all of the time. What if these athletes should be extra careful with how they interact? Now, that is true, right? They should listen to the response. Why? There aren't consequences for them. And being outspoken and relatable is usually good for the brand. Okay, they're not. Again, we're talking about what brought this on. Tiffany Hayes being okay with a fan's suggestion as to how to deal with Caitlin Clark. Are you going to revisit it when one of the nuts threatened Clark, who was already, like a few others, had stalker issues? Monica Seles, which is what I was going to get into in a minute, actually. So hold on to that thought. And I love this. And I promise you, Hayes has received more threats and harassment than CC since their exchange. In what world should we take the media at their word with a promise? We constantly bring receipts. You never bring receipts. As Angela says, the point is you can't go and post encouragement over someone alluding to violence or revenge. Two wrongs don't make a right. Interact, but use common sense. What would happen if that poster went and harmed Clark? As Ken points out here is a good point. The whole Monkey Noises investigation came about off Sky fans on social media who were upset about a 30-point opening day loss. Yep, BTA. Something that never happened somehow influenced the players and the league. I don't understand why a lot of you guys are acting so dense. The problem is not that the fans are crazy. You cannot police that. The problem is having players give approval about the crazy things fans are saying, like insinuating acts of violence against other players. 100%. Now, they mentioned Monica Seles, which I wanted to point out, as this person says here. For those of you who don't know, Monica Seles was the world dominant number one player. Really, I'm trying to think how old she was. I don't think she was even in her prime yet when it happened. She was, unseating the dominant number one before her, Steffi Graf. Had become a lopsided rivalry as Monica Seles moved ahead of her, and she was well on her way. Already had enough accomplishments because you'd still, in this day with a shortened career, put her up there. Was going on to be the greatest women's tennis player of all time. In fact, if this incident didn't happen, I think, and nothing against Serena, who would, still be in that conversation, but there'll be a lot of people saying Monica Seles was the greatest women's player of all time. For those that don't know, she was stabbed in the back on the court by a Steffi Graf fan who wanted Steffi to be number one again. By the way, the delusional I think it was the WTA, right? Women's Tennis Association. That actually happened. They didn't make any changes because for those of you that don't know, right, in tennis you have a year, your past 12 months of points in terms of what tournaments you play in and how far you go and all of that. You accumulate points, and every 12 months, when you go 12 month in a day, those points fall off. So Monica Seles was obviously out for a long time. Steffi Graf got her number one ranking back. For those of you that don't know or follow it and wonder, when you see uh, people now just employees, security, I don't know who exactly does it, if they're technically really security, but you have people who stand behind the players' chairs when the players are on them facing crowds. That's why, because Monica Seles was sitting in her chair and a fan hops out of the stands and goes and stabs her in the back. And now, of course, all of that is elevated because of social media. There was no social media back then, but you have it now. And to sit here and say, take the Tiffany Hayes incident because you don't like how the independent content creators who people are turning to because we're honest about things and we talk about the conversations they want in the news they want instead of hiding things from them and hiding uncomfortable conversations because you don't like that. You're going to use the Tiffany Hayes thing to say, oh, this is social media interaction is great for the WNBA and it never happens elsewhere, and completely ignore what was specifically said by Tiffany Hayes is actually vile and disgusting. And you are adding to the possibility of a deranged lunatic doing it to Caitlin Clark what happened to Monica Seles. What's the phrase? Blood on your hands. And I will just, let me see this is getting kind of long. Maybe I'll save it for another day. But I was going to talk about some of his comments to myself and Rhodes of Black and White Sports getting into an interaction as well. But maybe I'll leave that for another day and another video. Do me a quick favor, like, comment, subscribe. I truly appreciate it. I will talk to you later.